So the visual that I'm using in this video, guys, might look a little bit familiar to some of you guys, man. Getting off at the green line on 63rd. I got a homie of mine that lives not too far from there, man. I was linking up with him last week, and I figured I'd record this part for you guys because this is where the very well-known neighborhood known as O Block is at. 63rd and King Drive. A lot of stuff goes down over here, man. A few years ago, this was the hottest block in Chicago. The BDs have this block, as you guys know, Black Disciples, named after Odie Perry, who was slain. For you guys who have been on my channel for a long time and, you know, familiar with Chicago at all, you probably already know about this. Michelle Obama, so originally from this neighborhood, Parkway Gardens. I'm going to drive past it in my homie's car over here. I was recording out the window. But, yeah, you can see at night, though, that they got a cop posted up on the block over there, which is good, down there at the green line. There was nothing really going on when I got off, you know, and most nights I think it's pretty quiet and peaceful around there because the police are pretty heavy around there. Like, they're definitely bending that block, and they got one cop that just sitting out there. Now, on the backside of Parkway Gardens off of Indiana is a lot of times where guys come. But, yeah, the front, you know, where those gates are at and where the guardhouse is at, I wouldn't say that it's too common that guys, you know, come through shooting around there. I know there's like the impression that it's like just a 24/7 like shooting gallery around that particular block, and I've kind of given that impression in some of my previous videos. But as you can see from this particular night, I mean, this is the prime time when a lot of that stuff would be going on, and it was pretty quiet. Now, I know this one particular night that I'm showing you guys isn't necessarily like a comprehensive, you know, analysis of how violent that block is, but I wouldn't say that it necessarily lives up to the reputation that sometimes some of the rappers give it. I know certain people have like gone to O Block and just posted up there. Well, there's police all over the place here. You know, there's businesses. It's not like a quiet residential block. Those quiet residential blocks are the ones that, you know, kind of always creep me out more, and then the ones where there's businesses all over the place. And this green line here, I mean, there's cameras all over the place right here, and police constantly bending this block, man. So I didn't feel unsafe getting off at all. So, and this is at nighttime. So, yeah, that all of the people doing that stuff where they're just like showing themselves over on O Block, there's really nothing special about that. Now, if you, like I said, if you come around the backside off of Indiana when everybody's outside, you know, if you're a person like me, maybe nothing's going to happen. But if you're like a young black guy or something like that, okay, and they don't recognize you, or none of the guys from the neighborhood recognize you, you might have to explain where you're from. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you get recognized from being over, you know, where the enemies are from. Okay, now that is a little bit challenging. But to just get off as a regular person in this neighborhood, nah. So guys, by Chicago standards, we had a real quiet, peaceful, tranquil weekend, man. And not to minimize or to diminish, you know, the tragedy that the two victims that we had did experience. We had 2 people killed and 15 people shot. And again, you know, condolences to the families of all the people that were affected in those numbers. But for Chicago, those numbers are extraordinarily low, like rock bottom low. And they're way down from previous months. The police chief was talking about it, man. But we did have a rather traumatic incident that took place over by Foster Beach. And this is a location you guys may have seen some of my old videos. I'll try and get up there again if I get the chance, but it's just off of Foster Avenue, like all the way at the lake. There's a basketball court there that was featured in, I think, one of those video games like NBA Street or something like that. The court's not, it's not real like fancy or anything like that. The rims are kind of bent and the concrete is cracked in a bunch of places, man, but real good competition goes there in the summertime. Used to hoop there a lot. It's right off the drive, right off of Lakeshore Drive. And then there's a big, nice park next to that. A lot of people, a lot of families always going over there, man. And, you know, like I said, a lot of good college level players hooping over there, man. But we had a body of a landlord in Chicago that was found in a freezer. And the first thing that tipped police off to this discovery were bloody rags that were found along the lakefront by Foster Beach and human remains in a freezer inside of a boarding house in Arcadia Terrace as they searched for the building's owner on Monday evening, turning a missing person case into a homicide investigation. This is being reported by every Chicago media outlet. This particular one's from the Sun-Times. So the owner was a woman who who hasn't formally been identified, but she's believed to be the victim. And she was found around 7 p.m. Monday in the 5900 block of North Washtenaw. So the police said that a suspect who lived in the boarding house and frightened other residents was taken into custody after pulling a knife on a tow truck driver he allegedly hired to move a, quote, large plastic bag to Foster Beach, where bloody rags were found in a garbage can. So a resident of the boarding house reported the owner missing on Monday, and she hadn't been seen for roughly a day. Detectives confirmed that she had been seen walking around the neighborhood on Sunday. So the cops said that the resident who made the report pointed investigators to a neighbor that, quote, the other tenants were afraid of. They said the person had recently called a tow truck to haul off a very heavy bag. And they said, we learned that this individual dumped a large plastic bag in a garbage can at Foster Beach. And detectives were able to go to that garbage can and see that there were some bloody towels in that garbage can. So the can and its contents were then taken to the Cook County Medical Examiner's office for further investigation. And the detectives began searching the suspect's home and discovered, quote, human remains in a freezer. So the investigators then left and obtained a search warrant to go back and retrieve all of the evidence properly. So after pulling a knife on the tow truck driver, the suspect was taken into custody, but declined to speak to detectives. And they said, quote, we have a long way to go, but obviously we believe that the missing person is unfortunately the individual that we discovered. So exactly what was going on and what the motive was behind this, hopefully, the detectives will get to the bottom of this, man. But yeah, this is something that, pops up every now and then in Chicago, man. It's one of these real creepy type murder investigations, man. And this is the kind of like traumatic stuff that a lot of Chicago police detectives deal with on I'm not going to say a daily basis, but they see it multiple times in their careers. I had reported on like the body parts of like a baby that was found in the lagoon in Garfield Park, like the head severed. They come to some of these domestics and find people all chopped up, their eyes gouged out, like all types of horrific stuff. People who serve in the military or who go to Iraq or whatever, they have like periods of time off, and even them, they suffer from trauma mentally from some of the stuff that they see. But a lot of these detectives, especially, and some of the regular beat cops too, who do this. Right after they see, a body chopped up in a freezer, they go out and interact with the general public, and the kind of mind state that seeing certain stuff puts a person in. I feel like a lot of these guys, when they're dealing with some issue like this, they should be given time off after that, just to kind of like, not say make the effects of it go away, but at least to time diminish that a little bit, if that's at all possible, because seeing that type of stuff can definitely affect how one interacts with the general public, and then, that can make community relations worse. But one thing that I wanted to talk about, guys, seeing as we had a weekend that was relatively quiet, prior to the weekend, we had a 12-year-old that overdosed on fentanyl. And this is something that I'm going to include in this video, man, because this involved DCFS, and it's put a lot of heat on DCFS, and this is something that in the schools we dealt with a lot, and that is kids that are going through stuff at home, and DCFS has to make a call that is extremely difficult. Do you leave the kid in that situation, or do you remove him from the home? And the thing that you have to keep in mind, okay, people always jump on DCFS after they see stuff like this happen. But what you have to remember is that for kids, being taken away from one's birth parents and being taken away from one's family is oftentimes more traumatic and more mentally detrimental to that kid than the trauma that you're trying to spare him from. Okay, so, you might have a kid whose parents are using drugs or whatever and occasionally beat the kid. Now, that's bad. I'm not trying to minimize that at all, in any way, shape, or form. Like, getting beaten by one's parents is very, very bad. But to be with somebody who's totally unknown to the kid, and who the kid is, scared just to be around because they don't trust them. They've never met him before. They don't know if this person's going to sexually assault them or what, and that actually might happen. See, over time with one's birth parents, that a kid gradually becomes acclimated to from the day that one is born. These kids develop certain mental defense mechanisms to deal with some of their parents' idiosyncrasies and bad habits and tendencies. Okay, and those defense mechanisms, when you rip the kid away from the home and put him in a totally new environment, he has to start from square one when it comes to that. Most trauma, at the end of the day, is experienced mentally. As far as physical pain, most kids who are in abusive homes, that will happen. I mean, they'll feel the physical pain. But for a kid, you have to remember that they don't see things the way that adults see the world. Okay, you take an adult out of one home, okay, he can readjust. They got to get used to this, whatever. For a kid, that's their world. Like, that's all they know, okay, at that point. And the time goes by very slowly for kids, okay? So, for a kid that's only, 8 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, you take them away from the only thing that they've ever known, and it's like taking them and putting them in a totally different universe. And it leaves them mentally like reeling. So this is not as simple and easy a call to make as a lot of people kind of portray it to be when they're jumping on DCFS in the aftermath of these mistakes. So CBS Chicago is reporting the state's Child Welfare Office was called to investigate one Chicago family 9 different times. The Illinois Department of Children and Family Services looked into allegations of abuse and neglect, and on the 9th visit, a 12-year-old was found dead from a drug overdose. So the kid's name was Joel Watts, and so the department said that one of Joel's 10 siblings was born addicted to drugs, and Joel himself died from them. So the DCFS visit started 6.5 years ago, but weren't enough to keep Joel alive. When his body was taken from the family's home in Chicago's Roseland neighborhood down in the hundreds this August, Joel had ethanol and fentanyl in his system, and it was marked an opioid-related death, and the manner of death was marked as an accident, but the accidents and incidents in Joel's orbit were many, they said. So the DCFS report shows the family made up of 10 children between the ages of 4 and 25 was visited by DCFS 9 times from February 2016 until August of 2022. They said several noted concerns for abuse and neglect appear in the report, but the kids were never removed. So the report said the kids had cuts, bruises, welts, abrasions, and oral injuries, and Joel first appeared in the reports in May of 2017 at age 7. He was identified as a child victim, and the mother was named as the alleged perpetrator, being investigated for medical neglect and environmental neglect. So Joel sustained a fracture that required surgery. The next month, a report said the father was named as the alleged perpetrator, being investigated for allegations of abuse, and an investigator visited the family, and there were noted concerns in that report as well. In October that year, a newborn child in the hospital was substance exposed by the mother, and in December of 2017, the mother stated that she felt overwhelmed. So, those using dope or just being exposed to dope, inhaling the stuff when a woman is pregnant can, cause the kid to be addicted to that stuff when they're born. 3 years later, in January 2021, the mother completed a substance abuse program and was committed to staying clean. 20 months later, on August 19th, Joel died. The mother was named the alleged perpetrator, investigated for allegations of death by neglect. And it's noted that the mother is pregnant, and the children were placed in a safety plan with a family member, so that's good. At least they're with a family member. And Joel's siblings remain in placement services. Joel is the 10th child in 11 months on DCFS radar to have died. So CBS reached out to the Chicago police and the Cook County State's Attorney's Office to find out if either the mother or father had been arrested or charged, and they have no information to share at that point. So people were really going in on DCFS in the aftermath of this case, man. Definitely understand their point of view, but maybe, there does need to be a definite restructuring or a rethinking of how they do things over there, man, because, every single death of a kid, it shakes the entire community. Kids that age dying in that manner, this is not like a situation that these kids signed up for or anything. So, this is, even in those situations, with the gangs and stuff, it's still sends shockwaves through the community. But with this kind of a thing, man, people that know this kid, like when you know somebody as a kid that dies in a manner like that, like, you're never the same after that, okay? It doesn't just affect that family. It affects, like, all his classmates, the entire community. So, hopefully, I think they should really start another organization, not to replace DCFS, but kind of to be a backup second watch, if I can put it that way, on top of them, to kind of do a little bit more thorough checking with some of these families, man, because sometimes you can take a kid out of a home, put them in foster care, and the foster care can be worse. And you can have something like this happen in foster care. And then people are looking back and saying, well, you should have left them with the family. So it's a very difficult call to make, like I said, and that's why I try to sympathize with, the people who have to make that call, because this is not easy. When you're dealing with situations like this is not math. This is an art. Like, it's not like where you can know that you have it right or wrong ahead of time. It doesn't work like that. You only get to look at this kind of a thing in hindsight. And there's certain variables that are completely unpredictable in situations like this, man. So rest in peace to Joel, though, man. And, anybody that's using drugs, I mean, that's a form of child abuse, period. Period, point blank. Whether you're giving the kid drugs or not, if you're just using drugs around the kid, just getting him used to seeing that is predisposing him to use and abuse later in his or her life. So, anybody that's using dope around a kid is straight up abusing the kid, period, point blank. And I mean, even if a person is addicted, but not using, in that kid's vision, in his eyesight, just to be addicted while, like that needs to be handled immediately. And in the meantime, I would have the kid live with a relative or something. Parents can make that call too on their own if they know, like, I'm going to be out of my mind, out of my body while I'm off this stuff, and I need to get off this stuff first before I can be a good parent to my child. That's a call that parents need to make too. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching, man. Your boy Winnie City Report, and I'm out.